Now that the Zombunny is completed, creating the rest of the enemies is actually quite simple. In this section, let's take a look at how we're going to create the Zombear, which is actually very similar to the Zombunny and will require very little changes. I still have my Zombunny in my scene, so what I'm going to do is turn this Zombunny into a Zombear and save it as a new prefab. I'm going to start by renaming the Zombunny to Zombear. Then, before I accidentally save these changes back to the Zombunny prefab, I'm going to turn it into a new prefab by clicking and dragging it from the hierarchy down into the Characters folder, subfolder of the Prefabs folder, in the project window. The next thing I'm going to do is simply swap the graphics of the Zombunny out for the graphics of the Zombear. Almost everything else can remain exactly the same. I'm going to go to my Models folder and then the subfolder Characters, and I'm going to locate the Zombear model. I'm going to click and drag this into the scene. Swapping one for the other is actually pretty simple. I'm going to click and drag the Zombear game object I just added to my scene, and I'm going to nest it underneath the Zombear prefab object that was originally my Zombunny. Now that my Zombear is a child of this new Zombear parent object, I'm simply going to reset its transform. Now the two objects line up. At this point, I can get rid of the Zombunny graphics. I'm going to do this by clicking the Zombunny game object, a child of this Zombear parent, and I'm going to delete it. I'm going to get a warning that this is going to break the prefab instance. I'm okay with that. Now we simply have our Zombear. I'm going to expand the Zombear model, locate the Zombear graphics, which are underneath of it, and click and drag them so that they are nested underneath the Zombear parent. Again, I'm going to be warned that this is going to break a prefab instance. I'm okay with it. We now have the original, mostly empty, Zombear model parent object. This is unnecessary anymore, so I'm just going to delete it. As you can see now, we've taken the Zombunny and turned it into the Zombear by deleting the Zombunny graphics and adding the Zombear graphics. From there, it's simply just a matter of reorganizing the hierarchy and deleting the objects we don't need anymore. Now that that's done, there's a simple matter of the animation to handle. I'm going to click on the Zombear parent object, and I'm going to notice that the colliders are still going to be appropriate for this model. I don't actually need to change much to get the Zombear working just like the Zombunny. Other enemies will have to be changed a little bit more aggressively, but this one is a pretty good starter because it's a very simple change set. I can look and notice that the properties for the nav mesh agent, the enemy movement, enemy attack, and enemy health scripts are all still fairly appropriate. You might want to tweak the enemy attack or the enemy health a little bit, but mostly the Zombunnies and Zombears were designed to be pretty much identical. One area we're going to have an issue is with the avatar on the animator. We notice it still points to the Zombunny. All I need to do is click this circle selector next to the Zombunny avatar and choose the Zombear avatar. Now, the avatar will point to the appropriate model. Again, since the Zombunny and the Zombear are very similar, the exact same animations work for both. They were actually made with the exact same rigging, so I don't even need to change the controller. Now, I'm going to press play and see the bear in action. We'll see that it animates appropriately, and when it gets to the player, we're going to see that it's able to defeat the player. We'll even see that the animation transitions appropriately to the idle animation once the player is defeated. To finish things up, I'm going to go ahead to the Prefabs folder, subfolder Characters. I'm going to see the prefabs, Zombear and Zombunny, in the Characters folder. However, Zombear still looks exactly like the Zombunny. Remember, we broke our prefab instance previously, and so it doesn't actually know that we've really changed anything. We could apply these changes by clicking and dragging the Zombear game object from the hierarchy down into the project window, either creating a new prefab or overriding the existing Zombear prefab, or we can simply click on the Zombear game object in the hierarchy and select Apply. Doing so will re-establish the link between the Zombear game object and the Zombear prefab. We'll notice the Zombear game object turn blue in the hierarchy, and we'll notice the Zombear prefab updated to look appropriate.